It wasn't supposed to end like that, especially considering that Manchester United fans loved him.
Alexis Sanchez, welcome to United.
Sanchez, welcome to United.
Welcome to Man United.
I hope to see your face every week.
Given everything he'd achieved at Arsenal, the expectation was that Alexis Sanchez would pick up and continue even further at his new club. But in the space of a couple of months, it all turned out very badly.
We talked about Alexis Sanchez tonight going over to Italy, and I welcomed him coming to the club because I thought he would be a forward that would play all across the line, he'd score goals, he's tenacious, but it's been a disaster. He's been an absolute disaster. I mean, I have no idea what's happened to Alexis Sanchez. There must be two of them. The one that we saw playing for Barcelona and Arsenal for sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. The one that's turned up in Manchester.
He went from being praised every week at the club to being celebrated when he left. And to understand why all of this happened in the first place, you got to go back a bit. Alexis Sanchez was the guy at Arsenal, particularly in that 2016-17 season. He was scoring goals like this for fun, and playing for an Arsenal team that had underachieved. Sanchez himself knew his time in North London was coming to an end. He was in high demand too.
Copa América, Alexis, le pegó, Chile campeón, Chile.
Just 2 years earlier, he'd scored the coldest penalty in a high-pressure game, a panicker to help Chile win the Copa America Centenario. Add this to him helping Arsenal win the FA Cup, and Sanchez has emerged as one of the best players in the country. So much so that he'd already started a bidding war in Manchester. Initially, all the news about Sanchez leaving was with Manchester City. Under the then City new boss Pep Guardiola, the team was looking to rebuild, a fresh start, and a player like Sanchez in the firing line would have been the ideal replacement.
These pictures just show it all. Absolutely perfect it is at the moment. You can see late on, Barcelona ended up going down to 9 men. He's not happy with him at all.
Add this to the fact that both Pep and Sanchez had history together. And something was cooking. But whatever that was though, didn't get done in the blue half of Manchester. Somehow, City failed to strike a deal with Arsenal for Sanchez in the summer. And the idea was that they'd try again in the winter transfer window. But by January, City weren't the only ones in the deal. And the new guys acted fast. Really fast. In a swap deal with Arsenal that saw Henrik Mkhitaryan going the other way, Alexis Sanchez signed for Manchester United for a reported fee of £35 million. Honestly, given everything he'd been for Arsenal, Chile and even Barcelona a few years back, this move felt like a steal. The fact is, that's what it was. As I said earlier, when it comes to signing Sanchez, it looked to all the world like City was going to seal the deal. But United acted on it, and Sanchez was their new man. At the time, this was huge for United. Huge.
This is Sanchez in the summer transfer window.
We identified him as a player that would have been a good fit for this club. Pep was very keen to have him join, but it didn't happen. I think not for the wrong reasons or for any regrets. There are reasons why that deal ultimately didn't fall through, and it was out of our hands.
It was a transfer that even Manchester City couldn't deny they were interested in, and they'd beaten him to it. Sanchez, alongside the likes of Eden Hazard, was one of the biggest wingers in the league. And to have a player like that in their ranks, the expectation was that he would be the guy to take that United front line to the next level. On his part, Sanchez had his expectations set already. He mentioned that it was his dream to play for United, and that he wasn't just saying that because he joined the club. The guy believed he could win the Premier League, the Champions League, and any competition they played in that year. And you couldn't blame him. Heck, he was playing for the biggest club in England. It didn't exactly start great for Sanchez. He got an assist in his first game as United played in the 4-0 win versus Yeovil Town. But on his Premier League debut for United, it was a different story. He played the full 90 minutes in the 2-0 loss away to Spurs. But this was still only the early days for the club. On the day he finally got to play at Old Trafford as a United player, Sanchez immediately got off the mark. A goal on his home debut for United in the Premier League. Couldn't blame the fans for believing Sanchez was going to change the fortunes of the club.
Pero llegando aquí, mirando el escudo y creo que el United es un equipo que tiene que ganar todo porque United es un equipo grande. Me orgullo de usar la camiseta 7 que también Muchos dicen que hay presión o te puede jugar en contra, pero yo me divierto jugando el fútbol, buse el 10, buse el 9, buse el que sea.
Talking about his qualities and expectations like that, it was clear to United fans what they were getting. With Alexis Sanchez, this was a player who didn't have to depend on teammates or other players to succeed. A player who could make things happen on his own. Magic, and a guy who had proven to be decisive in big games for Arsenal in previous years. And now, straight off, his first task with his new team was about winning. Only a few weeks in though, and the mood started to change. Given the hype and everything that surrounded his transfer, Sanchez was struggling.
I mean, Sanchez, for one, he just looks a shadow of the former player he was. When he was at Arsenal, he was a player that everyone looked to for inspiration. Here, he looks like a stranger in this team.
This one came after United was shockingly eliminated from the Champions League round of 16 against Sevilla in 2018. And for Sanchez, what was disappointing about this one was the expectation placed on him as he came into the Premier League. It weren't getting any better. After that goal against Huddersfield Town at Old Trafford, Sanchez went on a 4-game barren streak, but quickly returned with a couple of performances to excite the United fans again. They shockingly beat Manchester City 3-2 at the Etihad, and Sanchez starred with a brace in the game. The league was gone, the Champions League out of the picture, and the only competition United realistically had left was the FA Cup. And in that, Sanchez starred in the semi-final win over Spurs. A goal in the 2-1 win and sent United to the final. Unfortunately though, it wasn't to be. They lost the final 1-0 to United, meaning Alexis Sanchez ended his first season with his new team trophyless. The numbers, they were worse. Sanchez managed just 9 league goals all season in the league, and 7 of that number were for Arsenal. Something wasn't quite right, but still Sanchez had the benefit of the doubt. Given that it was a new team and arguably a bigger club, he now had a full summer to rest and prepare for the new season. 2018-2019 this time around. But this couldn't have gotten any worse. I mean, his injury list that season sounded almost made up. Sanchez struggled with injuries, from a knee injury to a hamstring injury, a groin issue, a knock and thigh problems. He was restricted to just 27 appearances in all competitions that season. And his only highlight of that campaign was that goal against Newcastle United in the 3-2 comeback win at Old Trafford. Get this, that was his only goal in the league that season. He managed just 2 goals in all competitions that campaign, although his second goal, well, this was wicked. Scored in the FA Cup against his former team, Arsenal, to knock him out. Still, you get the idea by now that Sanchez was having a tough time at United, and we'll get into what happened right after. But first, see that subscribe button to Pitch Hub down below. Click on it so you never miss the latest updates from the channel. So, right, we know Sanchez was struggling, and even worse, the manager who wanted him at the club wasn't there anymore.
I said we shouldn't be conned, but I have to say, if my son stays down like this for 3 minutes and he gets 10 of his mates around him if he gets that in the face from one of his other mates and he needs 10 mates to help him up.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the new man at the helm, and though he didn't have genuine intentions with Sanchez, expecting that he'd prove a point at the business end of the season, Sanchez couldn't, and unlike Mourinho, Solskjaer wasn't patient enough to wait for Sanchez to get into his rhythm. He needed answers, and in turn drops the Chilean. Sanchez weren't working out. But for a transfer that had so many expectations and promised a lot, the question is, what exactly happened with Sanchez, and why didn't it work out? To begin with, the formation and tactics used by both managers didn't favour him at all. At Arsenal, he was at his best operating in that support striker role, just behind the main man up front, which could have been either Olivier Giroud or, at times, Danny Welbeck. Sanchez is a clever footballer who can operate in tight spaces, find channel runs, and has the footwork to beat opponents and find a clever finish. That's what United was getting, but it's safe to say they couldn't make the most out of the deal. At United, when Sanchez started, Mourinho and later Ole Gunnar Solskjaer opted to use him more as a winger than close to the goal. Now, for all his qualities, not saying he's slow, but Alexis Sanchez was never really the type of player to beat an opponent with pace or speed. he relied on his intelligence, positioning and quick feet to do that instead. Could go on about the tactical system and how it affected Sanchez in his game, but ultimately it's more than that. And that's because with Sanchez, his issue was more of a mental one. With Sanchez, I felt him to be not a happy man, and I think in every job you have, when you're not happy, it's not easy to perform at every level. But the reality is that I always felt that Sanchez was a sad man. The words of Jose Mourinho on Sanchez after the two spent a considerable amount of time together, and looking at it now, maybe Mourinho wasn't wrong. Think about it, Sanchez was almost at God level at Arsenal. The fans loved him, and in turn, he was delivering special performances and playing the sort of football that attracted the big clubs. But the real point here is that he was happy. Sanchez played with a smile on his face, linked with the rest of his teammates. He was entertaining to watch. And every time he stepped on the pitch in that Arsenal jersey, it just felt like something special was about to happen. But when the move to United officially happened, it ruined Sanchez's reputation.
For the first few games, there was so much anger towards Alexis Sanchez because you could see that he didn't want to play for the team. You could see he didn't want to play for the club. You could see he was being arrogant.
Sanchez hasn't really made a massive contribution from August to December.
The fans that used to love him at the Emirates turned on him because Sanchez had done to them what Robin van Persie had done to them all those years back. The same thing, left Arsenal for United, claiming the need to win trophies. In Sanchez's case, he was up against it, and he knew it. Going back to his earlier interview, Sanchez already stated the pressure of joining a big club and taking on a jersey like the number 7 at United, knowing how much it meant. He needed to prove a point, and in the end, it didn't work out. So, what happened then? He failed to win over the United fans, who believed he was only there for the money rather than to perform. And he'd lost the Arsenal fans who turned on him after the United transfer. So yeah, Mourinho